It did not happen suddenly. It began in silence, somewhere between who you were allowed to be and who you learned you needed to be to keep peace. You do not remember the exact moment it shifted. You only remember that very early in life, emotional safety was something you had to earn. Love was not oxygen. Love became currency. Every expression, every mood, every tone around you became something you had to monitor. Not because you were needy, but because connection felt unstable and unpredictability felt dangerous. Affection had conditions. Approval had rules you never really understood. Peace was not something given. It was something negotiated. A raised eyebrow, a disappointed sigh, a silent withdrawal. These were not small moments. These were emotional alarms. This is how the nervous system learns vigilance, so you shaped yourself to reduce threat. You softened your edges. You muted your voice. You calibrated every response before speaking, not to be kind, but to avoid being the reason someone else felt discomfort. And that is where people-pleasing begins. Not from generosity, from fear. Be good to stay safe. Be agreeable to stay accepted. Do not upset anyone to remain included. People think people-pleasers are just naturally nice, but people-pleasing is not kindness. It is protection. Children do not look at unstable emotional environments and think, they failed me. Children think, I must be doing something wrong. So you adapted. You became small. You became easy. You learned to disappear strategically while still acting present. Obedience became identity. Silence became survival. Self-abandonment became safety. Your nervous system memorized that compliance meant protection. Your body stored that silence meant stability. Your identity learned that authenticity meant danger. This was not personality. This was survival coding, and that code followed you into adulthood. This is why saying no still feels dangerous today. This is why disappointing someone still feels like loss. This is why your body still tenses when someone is unhappy with you, because long ago, you made a quiet deal with the world. If I shrink myself enough, maybe no one will hurt me again. And slowly, you became someone else. Because you wanted to, but because you felt like you had to. You learned which parts of you made people uncomfortable. And you hid those parts, quietly, strategically, not to improve yourself, but to survive. You became agreeable because it reduced tension. You became soft because it felt safer. You became predictable because unpredictability used to cost you connection. And hear me clearly, this was not kindness. This was protection. People praised you for being understanding. They loved you for being easy. They valued you because you never created discomfort, but they were not loving you. They were loving the version of you that made their emotional world easier. That is not connection. That is compliance. You rehearsed conversations before saying them out loud. You predicted reactions before anyone reacted. You became fluent in other people's emotional world. More than your own. You call it empathy today. But back then it was threat detection. Your nervous system learned to stabilize environments by sacrificing yourself, and it worked. Rooms stayed calm, people stayed close, conflict stayed avoided, but there was a cost. A cost you did not see while you were trying to survive. Every time you betrayed your truth to protect connection, you drifted further away from yourself. Your exhaustion today is not random. It is accumulated self-abandonment. The grief you feel now is not because you are weak. It is because you have held your breath inside relationships for so long, and you did it silently, without even noticing. Listen to me, this was never your fault. You adapted in the only way you knew, but now the work begins. Now you start returning back to yourself, slowly, gently, intentionally, not by becoming harder, not by becoming colder, but by becoming honest. But here is what most people never realize. People-pleasing does not create love, it creates comfort. That is why people-pleasers feel lonely even when surrounded by people. You can be in a relationship, you can be in a family, you can have friends close by, and still feel completely unseen, because love that cannot hold your truth is not love. It is dependency disguised as affection. People think people-pleasing is generosity, but most of the time, it is emotional damage control. You are not saying yes because you want to. You are saying yes because you fear the consequences of no. You stay quiet not because you lack words. You stay quiet because you believe your truth is dangerous. This is the revelation. People-pleasing is not a love language. It is a fear language. It protects you from losing people, but it also prevents anyone from ever truly knowing you. You want connection deeply, but you only show the parts of yourself least likely to trigger discomfort, so you end up surrounded by people while starving emotionally. They feel safe with you because you do not disrupt them, but you do not feel safe with them because you do not feel allowed to exist fully. Love built on self-erasure cannot last, because if they cannot see you, they cannot love you. So what can you do now? You do not heal people pleasing by becoming louder or aggressive. You do not heal it by forcing yourself into the opposite extreme. This is not about personality performance. This is about changing the meaning underneath your behavior. Your blueprint was written in fear, not truth. Your body learned that harmony mattered more than honesty. Your worth became tied to how comfortable you kept other people. Connection became something you protected, even when it cost you yourself. But that coding was created when you had no power. You are not powerless anymore. Healing starts with questioning the rules you inherited, not attacking them. Just examining them with honesty, with curiosity. Ask yourself, whose comfort are you still protecting? Whose approval are you still chasing? Whose emotional storms are you still preparing for? Most of the patterns you repeat today are from emotional rooms you do not live in anymore. Your parents might not have meant to teach fear. They might not have intended to program silence. But unintentional pain still becomes stored memory. The body does not care about intention. The body only remembers impact. Unlearning does not mean blaming. You can hold compassion for them and still refuse to let those old rules define your life now. Because the real work is not convincing other people to accept your boundaries. The real work is believing that you are allowed to have them. Saying no is not disrespect. Disappointing someone is not failure. Protecting your peace is not selfishness. This is not about becoming unkind. This is about becoming real. You do not need permission to exist as yourself. That is the rewrite. That is where the blueprint shifts from fear-based survival to truth-based identity. People-pleasing was never a flaw. It was a strategy, a survival response, but survival is not living. This is where you begin choosing differently. This is where you begin learning a new emotional language, where love is not something you negotiate externally, but something you return back to internally. Every time you say no and survive, your nervous system learns something new. Every time you tell the truth and someone stays, your brain gets corrected. You begin teaching your body that honesty does not destroy connection. It actually defines real connection. Love is not earned through exhaustion. Love is not earned through emotional labor. Love is built through honesty, boundaries, and self-respect. When you stop trying to fix everyone else, you finally have space to notice yourself again, your own emotions, your own needs, your own peace. You start realizing that peace is not fragile anymore. Stillness does not feel like danger anymore. Silence does not feel like rejection anymore. Because now you are not waiting for someone to choose you. You are choosing yourself, and here is the powerful truth many people never hear. Your sensitivity was never the problem. Your empathy was never the weakness. Your softness was never the flaw. You survived chaos by becoming emotionally intelligent. You learned to read people because you once needed to stay safe. That sensitivity was a survival skill. It is part of your genius. The goal is not to kill that kindness. The goal is to free it from fear. Kindness without boundaries is self-sacrifice. Kindness with boundaries is power. Every uncomfortable no you say now is building the foundation for authentic yes later. This is how you reclaim your identity one choice at a time. One brave moment at a time. One true answer at a time. The real question is not how can I make everyone like me? The real question becomes can I still like myself when they do not? And when the answer becomes yes, that is when you become free. The hardest part of healing people pleasing is not setting boundaries. The hardest part is facing the silence that follows after you set them. Because when you stop giving people the version of you that served them, they notice, they react, some will pull away, some will question you, some will get upset. And that moment hurts deeply, because you thought the love was mutual. But now you see it was conditional. This is where most people pleasers relapse. You start doubting yourself. You start thinking maybe you are being selfish. You start wanting to repair the discomfort just to feel safe again. But you are not being selfish. You are breaking a cycle. You are no longer feeding a system that required you to erase yourself to maintain connection. You are not broken for wanting to be seen. You are simply used to being invisible. The first stage of healing is grief. You grieve the love you never received honestly. You grieve the childhood where you had to earn peace. You grieve the relationships that only worked because you carried all the emotional weight. To stop people pleasing, you have to admit something painful. You were trained to believe that your needs were a burden. That belief does not disappear overnight. It shows up in the small ways, when you apologize without doing anything wrong, when you shrink your joy to keep others comfortable, when you over-explain just to avoid misunderstanding. These patterns were not personality traits. These were trauma responses your nervous system memorized as survival. Healing begins when you stop negotiating your existence and start honoring your truth. You do not need to justify your boundaries. You only need to respect them. Healing from people-pleasing does not mean becoming cold. It does not mean becoming distant. It does not mean shutting the world out. Healing means balance. It means your emotions matter too. Your comfort matters, your time matters, your peace matters. The same way you care for others, you are allowed to care for yourself. You can be kind and still say no. You can love people without carrying the responsibility for their happiness. You can be supportive without abandoning yourself. When you first start setting boundaries, it will feel wrong. It will feel unsafe. It will feel like you are breaking rules you never agreed to consciously. This is because your body still associates boundaries with rejection. Keep practicing anyway. Every no you speak teaches your nervous system that you are not in danger. Every boundary teaches your brain that honesty does not destroy connection. To truly experience real connection, you have to let the old version of love die, the version where silence kept you safe, the version where shrinking kept you accepted, the version where self-abandonment felt like protection. Those rules protected you once. They do not protect you anymore. The wrong people will fall away without effort. And the right people will begin to arrive. People who love your voice, not your silence. People who respect your boundaries, not your compliance. People who do not need you to disappear to make them comfortable. You are allowed to take up space now. You are allowed to choose yourself now. Your worth was never measured by how comfortable others felt. It was always measured by how deeply you were willing to come back home to yourself. So when the old patterns whisper again, listen to the voice inside you that was buried for so long. That quiet voice is not weakness. That quiet voice is truth. This is the moment you stop being a people pleaser. This is the moment you become a person again.